finally say it for the Nigeria politicians. Yes, this is no longer story. Nigeria government is going to dance naked this time around. As I'm speaking to you, the USA have finally come tough on the Nigeria politician, more especially the northern elite. Do you believe that Kwankwaso, the Gumi, and the rest of the northern political elite are involved in the Islamic terrorists that have been terrorizing this country? Pablo, please, I'm urging you to do one thing. If you don't have data to watch this video to the very end of it, please do me a favor. Go and borrow, because this video that you're about to watch is so worthy that I wouldn't want you to miss it for anything. This is the best video that will come across for this very year.
Right now, the folks that I am talking to on the ground have described what's happening in the Middle Belt in the north of Nigeria right now in the last 10 days as a bloodbath. Potentially as many as 300 have been killed throughout that region of Nigeria. We've had this priest who has been kidnapped as well with 10 of his parishioners. 3 of them were killed.
As U.S. Congressmen Riley Moore and Chris Smith have proposed the Nigeria Religious Freedom and Accountability Act of 2026, recommending targeted sanctions, asset freezes, and visa bans against former presidential candidate Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, the Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association, Mieti Allah Kautal Hore, and what they describe as Fulani ethnic nomad militia. The bill alleges that the named individuals and groups are responsible for severe religious.
Fellow Igbos, to God be the glory that today there is hope of freedom. I want to appeal to the United Nations.
Yes, don't misquote me. Before we continue, based on the information available to us, do you know that the USA have seats and bring out all the list of the people are involved in this Islamic terrorists? My people, it don't happen. Watch this video to the very end of it. You will see how powerful this video is. Don't waste your time for nothing. Watch it and thank me later.
3 of them were killed in one of the states of Nigeria, where we had about 150 people killed. And I will point out, a lot of those were Muslims, actually, that were refusing to submit to Sharia law and were trying to follow the Constitution of Nigeria. They were killed, but amongst those were also Christians, and they were burned inside of a church. They set it on fire. So it's just wanton death and murder and destruction that continues. But working with the administration, we are making steps in the right direction to address this persecution. The president is very singularly focused on addressing this. We now have special forces in Nigeria in a non-combative manner. They're there assisting the Nigerians. We have just signed a security cooperation roadmap with the Nigerian government and their military to continue to work on this.
Now let's take a look at some tweets coming from the United States X space. Sean Nelson said the powerhouse team of Rep. Chris Smith and Rep. Riley Moore today introduced a new bill on religious freedom in Nigeria, increasing accountability measures, including recommendations for sanctions against Fulani militia and former Kano State Governor Kwankwaso, who introduced Sharia criminal law there. Nakabulu responded and said, well, how much were you paid to target and tarnish Kwankwaso's image? Zamfara State introduced Sharia first in Nigeria as part of their right because it's in the Constitution of Nigeria. Christians are safer in Kano State than virtually Christian-dominated states in Nigeria. Well, of course, what we do know is that the first governor to introduce and implement Sharia law was Governor Ahmed Sani Yerima of Zamfara State in January of 2000, with other states following after that. Well, could this be a case of mistaken identity? Although we know that the bill itself, the proposed bill itself, doesn't make reference to Kwankwaso implementing Sharia law, but the commentary around it alludes to that. So it's a very huge development because there have been several threats about naming people and outing people. And I think, I'm not sure whether people would be surprised that the first name on that list would belong to Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. Dr. Abati, I'll come to you.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, the United States has been interested under President Trump either in his first term or now the second term, in religious persecution in Nigeria. Ditto, the Department of State of the United States, also the Department of Justice, and also now you have the African Command being involved, with President Donald Trump carrying the flag and saying there is religious persecution in Nigeria. The federal government of Nigeria has made considerable effort in that direction to say that Nigeria is a secular country and that whereas there is insecurity in the country, there is no such thing as religious persecution. So that's the background. And now, over the years, Nigerians have been saying, name the persons. Before now, there was an attempt, I think, by the United States and also the United Arab Emirates to say that there are certain Nigerians in government and out of government who are funding terrorism. I think also under the Jonathan administration, there was some debate about the admittance at a senior level that, in fact, there were saboteurs inside the government. Now we have reached an interesting point whereby the United States House of Reps, Representative Chris Smith, I think he's 73 years old, the two oldest persons in the House of Reps in the U.S., he's been there since 1978, representing the 14th District of New Jersey. And then you have Congressman Riley Moore, also now, proposing a bill, and they are now saying that, one, the United States Congress should declare the Katauri,
Mieti
ala Katauri, should declare it a terrorist organization, and also Mieti Allah itself, which is the principal, home body, should be declared. And then they have now, in that context, named certain persons. And it is the name of Senator, former Governor Dr. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, flag bearer in the last general elections of the NMPP that has been mentioned. And then Makban, there's a group called Makban. Fulani ethnic nomads have also been named. Well, this matter has to go before the Congress, and they've indicated penalties that such persons will be declared as terrorists. Such persons will not be allowed to go anywhere near the United States of America. So it's a developing story. The matter will still go to Congress. It will be debated. But what you can say is that with the involvement of both Congressman Chris Smith and Riley Moore, this may be an outcome of the various visitations to Nigeria and the interactions with the Nigerian authorities. But we on our own at this table cannot reach a conclusion and say, oh, these persons, these groups, have been so properly identified. So there will be also negotiations, discussions at the binational level.
Absolutely. Ayo, your take on this
Okay, so
very
this
important
is a
story.
Huge story. And it's come up from, there's a journey towards this point, starting off, of course, very significantly, amongst the other things that have happened, that infamous post by President Donald Trump, which then triggered a chain of reaction. Obviously, from the Nigerian end, efforts that have been made to convince the U.S. government that there's no Christian genocide happening has not seemed to yield much fruit, because the conclusion of this bill is that there is Christian genocide happening. In fact, before we talk about the main thrust of the story, which is the naming of some of the people they've identified to institute the Magnitsky Agreement Act, which includes asset freezing. It's not just visa bans, it's also asset freezing, and also this would have an implication for them beyond the United States of America. In fact, in this bill, some of their partners are mentioned, the United Kingdom, as well as others are mentioned, and they might, France, and some of them might also decide to take on the same action. But I think beyond that is how detailed the report, about a 12-page bill. the preamble was to give details to the extent of the investigation that they did, including the congressional hearing, the fact that both Christian and moderate Muslims have been killed, the fact that some of them who opposed these things were targeted, were kidnapped, and were killed. So a lot of detail in the work that they did, and then the conclusion around what ought to be done, including the naming of these people. You know, Vimbai, all through this journey, let me call it that, what I've been insistent on is that I wish that Nigeria took the lead on this, because it is quite sad that we're now referring to or depending on the United States to tell us what is happening in our country and what ought to be done. I want to almost say the audacity of one sovereign to interfere in the, in fact, what they've cited as an example is that it's a threat to U.S. national security, and that's why they've taken an interest in this matter. But it should be more of an interest for Nigerians. But I think we can't even begin to decide whether or not there's Christian genocide in the first place before we decide to begin to take action in that regard. So that's my first point. The second point then I would then talk about would be what would be the implication of this naming of these individuals, of these people. I agree with Dr. Bati not to jump the gun, because I would like to understand the reasoning behind, because they didn't actually give a clear reason why he in particular was identified. And I'm glad that you drew in the Sharia law, because they mentioned it in this bill that the Sharia law, blasphemy law was, you know, part of the discrimination against Christians and some people living in this area. So a few things around there. You know, there are nuances, there are contexts that were not contained in this particular bill. But most importantly, what I'm calling for the Nigerian government at this point, can we take a lead on this? If there are indeed people who are killed because of their faith, can we do something about it? Can our senators, and this is where we call the National Assembly, can they do something about it? Their counterparts in the US have gone ahead to present their own report and made recommendations, and a bill has been passed. Can we do something about it back home? And finally, I'll rest on this point that, most importantly, can we now, they've accused, one of the charges brought against Malami is the fact that he didn't do anything about the list that was brought before him, and making that renewed call, that can we also identify the terrorist financiers or supporters or backers in Nigeria and do something about it?
Fellow Igbos, to God be the glory that today there is hope of freedom. I want to appeal to United Nations. I want to appeal to great leaders of the world. Note that the only solution to maintain peace in Nigeria is nothing but separation. Conduct referendum and let us have self-determination. We are not one people, different religion, different culture, different language. How can we be together? So the great Igbo nation, under the auspices of Igbo Senior Citizens Affairs Foundation, is demanding referendum today.
Now that I have seen the end of the clip, what did you just see? Can Nigeria survive this? I don't think so. This is the time. I keep saying it. Disintegration remains the likely solution to all these atrocities that the Nigerian politicians have placed on the common man's head. Yes, because these people, imagine where a terrorist will be acquiring a lot of sophisticated ammunition. Then you ask yourself this question: where did they get their funds, and who is financing them? How they managed to, get all this ammunition? Now it's not clear to us that the Nigerian politicians are involved and they cannot escape it. So that is why we are telling this. It's only disintegration, the separation, division, that is only thing that will bring the solution for these atrocities. We are asking, let the USA, let the Israel, let the world powers, let the men that matters recognize Biafra, and the rest will become history. Who am I? I'm only a messenger. If you love what I do here in this Global Love Channel TV, please don't hesitate to touch and have a subscribe button. Like and turn on the notification bell. Then whenever we upload a new video like this, you'll be the first person to be notified. And in doing that, you're encouraging us to do more. And togetherness, we shall save life together, because Africa life matters. Whenever you see something, always say something. Yes, till next time, see you in my next video. Bye for now. Thank you.